After losing the House to Republicans, President Obama says he's open to GOP ideas.
If the Republicans have ideas for how to improve our health care system, if they want to suggest modifications that would deliver faster and more effective reform to a health care system that has been wildly expensive for too many families and businesses, and certainly for our federal government, I'm happy to consider some of those ideas.
If they have ideas. But how will the far left feel about this political compromise as proposed? Let's talk to our panel about it. Former pollster for President Clinton, Bernard Whitman's here. Wall Street Journal's economics reporter, Kelly Evans, is here. And pollster and Republican strategist, Adam Geller, here. First off, Bernard, do you see a compromise here that's going to satisfy the president, the Republicans, and the far left?
Well, here's my concern. After the midterm elections, President Clinton in 1994 reached across the aisle to work with Republicans to enact welfare reform and balance the budget. Why? Because he's fundamentally a political pragmatist and a realist. I really question whether President Obama is really psychologically capable of surrounding himself with the types of people that are going to require him to be able to compromise in the way that's necessary to move the rest of his agenda forward.
And if obviously the economy's got to be first, Kelly.
Well, the interesting thing, you mentioned Clinton being a pragmatist and a realist, but what's happening right now is President Obama actually doesn't want to go as far as the Republicans do in extending some of the Bush tax cuts. Obviously, that has to be paid for. So I think in trying to sort of acknowledge or nod to those who would hope for some sort of fiscal, not profligacy, basically he's at crosshairs with them on this huge issue, which we only have about a month and a half to decide.
And the big difference between Clinton and Obama, Clinton lost both. He lost the Senate and the House. The president still has the Senate.
Well, and I'm going to go here. A big difference is that Bill Clinton wasn't really challenged from the Democratic Party in a primary. Seriously, there is talk about a potential challenge from the Democratic Party. The name Howard Dean comes up, other names have come up. So Obama really has to be careful because he doesn't want to alienate the left, but at the same time he realizes he has to recapture the middle, which clearly abandoned him from 2008.
Bernard, a staff shakeup usually happens when something like this happens. I mean, this is a 2-year, in many cases, a failure. A lot of people point to Rahm Emanuel.
Look, I think it's absolutely essential that the president move to the center. Why? A plurality of people in this country are independents. The majority of people are moderates. That's where the country is. That's what President Clinton recognized immediately after the midterms. And my concern is, again, the president fundamentally is more liberal than the rest of the country and surrounds himself with people that generally are to the left. He has got to bring in new blood.
You agree?
Yes, he's got.
You maybe even taken a Republican?
I think that would make a lot of sense.
So, Kelly, you also have a situation where the president clearly does not get it in this respect. The last policy he proposed was, I need $50 billion extra to goose the economy after his $860 billion. That doesn't seem like a guy who's ready to compromise.
Well, what's interesting, I think, actually is going to be precisely this issue of the Bush tax cuts. You mentioned, can he please both his base and also reach across the aisle and get things done in compromise? This is one area where you watch those tax cuts for the wealthy. Like I said, they have such a short time frame to get something done on this issue. They have to get something done.
In the lame duck session?
And will he concede and not allow tax rates to be raised on the wealthy?
By the way, listen to his language, too. I love his language. He says, the way the Bush tax cuts were structured, I'm going to come in and I'm going to help the middle class. Middle class, of course, being the key phrase here. But he's kind of almost taking credit for enacting a tax cut for certain people in the lame duck.
Yeah, but in the big picture, if he says for 2 years, I'm going to extend the tax cuts for people who make over $250,000, that's a major concession.
Well, here's what I'd like to see. It is absolutely essential that we get these tax cuts for the middle class permanent. I'd like to sunset the tax cuts for the wealthy in 2011 to make the Republicans defend that in 2012.
All right, stay right there because we're going to talk more. How can both sides get Americans back to work? The panel is going to weigh in on that specifically. They've promised to roll back the health bill, but should the newly minted leaders of the Republican Party be focusing their attention on the economy instead? We're back with our panel, Bernard Whitman, Kelly Evans, and Adam Geller. And focusing on jobs, do you find that if they get stuck in health care, that's going to anger the American public, Bernard?
I think it actually would be a disaster. I mean, fundamentally, here's the thing. The Republicans were elected because they promised to work to dismantle health care. In my perfect storm, they will focus on that. It'll get tied up in the courts. It'll get tied up in the legislative body. They'll fight about this for 2 years. Nothing will get done. The American people want action on jobs. We need a two-pronged attack, both focusing on private business, small business through this things like
Right.
the small business jobs bill and tax cuts, and also increasing spending on public works projects.
Kelly, he says his perfect storm because he wants Republicans to get back the House and keep the White House.
Democrats, yeah.
But the jobs numbers is coming out today. The unemployment figure, it's going to be roughly 9.6%, staying the same.
It's a huge report. We get it in just about an hour. It's the October jobs report, and here's why it matters. A year ago in October, the U.S. unemployment rate for this recession peaked at 10.1%. That's not as high as it got in 1982, by the way. It got up to 10.8%. What's different this time around is we're only expecting it to be 9.6% a year later. Go back to 1982, a year after it peaked at 10.8%, where was it? 8.5, 8.3 even by the end of the year. That's the different kind of recovery we're in now. That's the real challenge. As you say, if you're a pollster and you basically want to talk about double-digit unemployment, we're going to be able to talk about double-digit unemployment in the U.S. for quite some time.
We pollsters would round that up to 10% that 9.6.
Right,
Pollsters
I guess
on
you
the right would.
Right, but keep in mind too, people just want to know, okay, what are you going to do to create a job? Are you going to just say, going to roll out a job from a stimulus package, or are you going to create something that can be more permanent?
You know, the private sector creates jobs, but I think that in the short term and initially, making sure that the Bush tax cuts stay is going to be helpful toward creating jobs.
Let's say that's done.
And secondly, I got to say, dismantling the health care bill, you know, that health care bill, among other things, has been called a job killer. And it sort of forces small businesses to not provide coverage or to you know, send their employees someplace else.
You know what? From my perspective, I think it would be absurd to spend $700 billion that we don't have to give tax cuts to the wealthy. That is absurd. We ought to put that money into putting the 1.5 million construction workers back to work. That will stimulate the economy.
So take money
jobs.
from other people and put construction workers back to work.
Rather than give it to the rich.
Right.
Well, I will
hold on. The rich create jobs. I mean, don't demonize the wealthy and don't punish success. It is the people that you're talking about who create jobs. Let's not forget that.
And I would just say, given this debate happening right now, this is precisely why the Federal Reserve this week came out and announced a $600 billion program to help stimulate the U.S. economy, because nothing's happening on the fiscal side, and so they're now making sure that it's going to come from the federal
so we're going to put some more toner in and make some more money. Bernard Whitman, Kelly Evans, Adam Gello, great debate. And it's going to be very curious to see when the president comes back from his 10-day trip.